Welcome everyone. Today we are heading to the Mediterranean and to one of the most historically rich and naturally beautiful islands in the whole of Greece, Rhodes, the largest of the Dodecanese islands, sitting at the southeastern corner of the Aegean Sea just off the coast of Turkey. An island where ancient Greeks, medieval crusaders, Ottoman sultans and Italian colonists all left their mark in stone, layered on top of one another across 3,000 years of continuous habitation. An island of dramatic hilltop castles and crystal clear coves, of ancient acropoli and hidden forest springs, of dazzling medieval architecture and some of the finest beaches in the eastern Mediterranean. Here are the 7 best places to visit in Rhodes. We begin at the very centre of Rhodes, the old town, and there is simply nowhere better to start. The medieval city of Rhodes is one of the best preserved medieval towns in Europe. It is not merely old, it is extraordinarily intact, still enclosed within its original fortified walls, still laid out largely as it was when the Knights of St. John governed it in the 14th and 15th centuries. Walking through the gates of the old town and into its cobbled streets feels genuinely like stepping back through centuries. The Knights of St. John, also known as the Knights Hospitaller, arrived in Rhodes in 1309 after losing their previous base in the Holy Land. They fortified the island with extraordinary thoroughness, building the massive system of walls, towers and moats that still stand today. The walls are up to 12 meters thick in places, designed to withstand cannon fire. For over 200 years, Rhodes held off Ottoman attack until finally falling to Suleiman the Magnificent in 1522 after a siege of 6 months. Within those walls, the medieval street plan survives almost intact. The great cobbled thoroughfare of the Street of Knights is lined with inns of various national divisions of the knightly order, each built in the Gothic style of their respective home countries. It is one of the finest Gothic streets in existence, and it leads up to the Palace of the Grand Master, which we will visit very shortly. Beyond the knightly quarter lies the Turkish quarter, a reminder of the 3.5 centuries of Ottoman rule that followed the knights. Mosques, hammams, and carved doorways sit along Byzantine churches that were converted and later reconverted, and beyond that the Jewish quarter, home to the Rhodinian Jewish community for centuries before the devastating deportations of the Second World War. The old town rewards slow, aimless wandering. Get lost in it, follow whichever alley catches your eye, watch the cats sleeping in doorways. It's a place to be explored. The medieval city of Rhodes is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it is the essential heart of any visit to the island. Rising above the old town at its northwestern corner, the Palace of the Grand Master is the most imposing single building in Rhodes. It's a fortress within a fortress, built by the Knights of St. John as both a residence and a last refuge in times of siege. The original palace was built in the 14th century on the site of an earlier Byzantine fortress, and it served as the headquarters and official residence of the Grand Master. It was designed to be impregnable, with massive towers, deep cisterns capable of supplying water during prolonged sieges, and storage for enough food to sustain the garrison for months. After the Ottoman conquest of 1522, the palace fell into disuse and was eventually used as a prison. In 1856, an accidental explosion of stored gunpowder largely destroyed the interior, leaving the exterior walls standing but the inside in ruins. The palace was extensively restored, some would say rebuilt, during the Italian administration of Rhodes in the earlier 20th century. Mussolini intended it as a holiday residence for himself and later for King Victor Emmanuel III. The restoration used the original medieval fabric where possible, but added Italian Renaissance elements and filled the interior with an extraordinary collection of ancient mosaics, many brought in from the island of Kos. These mosaics, some dating from the Hellenistic and early Roman periods, are among the finest portable displays of ancient mosaic work in Greece. Today, the palace houses 2 permanent exhibitions on the medieval and ancient history of Rhodes, but it is the building itself, its great courtyard, its towers, and its sheer physical dominance of the old town that makes visiting it so memorable. A short walk from the Palace of the Grand Master, you'll find the Archaeological Museum of Rhodes, which is one of the finest regional museums in the whole of Greece. The museum is housed in the former Hospital of the Knights, which was the building that served as the primary medical facility of the knightly order during their time in Rhodes. The Knights Hospitaller took their name from their original mission of caring for the sick and injured pilgrims in Jerusalem, and the hospital in Rhodes was a direct expression of that founding purpose. It was one of the most advanced medical institutions of the medieval world, with separate wards for different types of patient, clean water supplies, and a medical staff of multiple nationalities. The building is magnificent in its own right, a large colonnaded courtyard surrounded by Gothic arcades, with the great hall of the infirmary running along one side. The space has been beautifully adapted to house the museum's collections. Those collections span several thousand years of Rhodian history. Among the highlights is the famous Aphrodite of Rhodes, a 1st century BC marble statue of the goddess emerging from the sea. This archaeological museum is definitely worth a visit if it's your kind of style. At the heart of the old town, where the knightly quarter meets the commercial streets and the harbour gate, lies Hippocrates Square. The square is named for Hippocrates of Kos, the ancient Greek physician regarded as the father of medicine, who was born on the nearby island of Kos, but whose influence was felt throughout the Dodecanese. It is framed on one side by the Castellania, which served as the knights' commercial court and trading exchange, and now houses the city's public library, and also by a beautiful medieval fountain at its centre, the Castellania Fountain, whose waters have been flowing here for centuries. In the time of the knights, this was the commercial hub of the city, the place where merchants traded, disputes were settled, and the business of the island was conducted. During the Ottoman period, it remained a central gathering place, and today it serves much the same function, a natural meeting point lined with cafes and restaurants, busy at all hours of the day and evening. Hippocrates Square has a relaxed, human quality that the grander streets of the old town sometimes lack. It's a place to sit, drink Greek coffee, watch the world go by, and feel the accumulated centuries pressing gently around you. It is also a wonderful starting point for exploring the quieter corners of the old town, the Turkish quarter to the south, the Jewish quarter to the east, and the warren streets between the main thoroughfares, where daily life in the old town continues largely as it has for generations. We leave the old town and travel south along the east coast of Rhodes to the village of Lindos and to one of the most dramatic ancient sites in the Greek islands. Lindos is one of the 3 great ancient city-states of Rhodes, predating the modern capital by centuries. The settlement goes back to at least the 10th century BC, and Lindos was a major maritime and commercial power throughout the ancient world. Its most visible legacy is the Acropolis, a fortified hilltop site that rises abruptly from the sea on a headland above the village, 316 steps above sea level, commanding views that stretch for miles in every direction. The approach to the Acropolis is an experience in itself. You climb through the whitewashed village with its cubic houses decorated with traditional pebble mosaic floors, past donkeys offering rides to those who prefer not to walk, and up a long staircase cut into the rock. At the top, the archaeological site encompasses layers of history from several different periods. There is a Byzantine castle built over earlier structures. Below it, the Great Propylaea, the monumental entrance colonnade, leads to the famous Doric temple of Athena Lindia, built in the 3rd century BC on the site of an earlier temple. The temple is relatively small, but its position, jutting out from the edge of the cliff with sea on 3 sides, makes it one of the most theatrically situated ancient buildings anywhere in the Mediterranean. Bring water, wear sunscreen, and go early in the morning if you can. The climb is worth every step. The ancient Acropolis of Rhodes itself is less famous than Lindos and far less visited, but it has its own quiet dignity, and its setting above the modern city gives it a different and equally rewarding character. Monte Smith, the name given to the hill by British sailors in the early 19th century, rises to around 111 metres above sea level on the western side of Rhodes town. In ancient times, this was the religious and ceremonial heart of the city of Rhodes. Founded in 408 BC when the 3 ancient Rhodinian city-states of Lindos, Lassissos and Kamiros unified and established a new capital. The site today contains the remains of a temple of Apollo, of which 3 columns have been re-erected and stand against the sky in a way that is extremely photogenic. There is also a restored ancient theatre that is occasionally used for performances today, and the remains of a stadium that once hosted athletic competitions. But it is the panoramic view from the top of Monte Smith that is perhaps the greatest attraction. You can see across the entire northern tip of the island, the old town and its harbours, the modern city, the coast stretching south, and on clear days, the Turkish coast and the island of Simi shimmering on the horizon. Monte Smith is definitely worth a visit if you're in town. We now head to the western coast of Rhodes and into the wilder, less visited interior of the island, to a castle that seems almost to have grown from the rock itself. Monolithos takes its name from the Greek for single rock, and the name is perfectly apt. The castle sits on top of an isolated plug of rock that rises 236 meters from the surrounding landscape on the southwestern coast, its walls growing seamlessly from the cliff edges in a way that makes it genuinely difficult to tell where the natural rock ends and the human-made fortifications begin. The castle was built by the Knights of St. John in the 15th century as part of their defensive network along the western coast. The position was chosen for obvious reasons, as any approach by sea would have been visible from miles away. Reaching the castle requires climbing a path cut into the rock face, and the path itself is part of the experience. Inside the walls, a small 15th century chapel dedicated to Saint Panteleimon survives in reasonable condition, and there are the ruins of several other structures. But the main reward is simply being there, on this extraordinary spike of rock, with the Mediterranean spread below you in every shade of blue and green. Monolithos is best visited in the late afternoon when the light from the west gives the rock its warmest colour. The village below has a traditional taverna or two, and sitting there after the descent with a cold drink feels very well earned. And there we have it, the 7 best places to visit in Rhodes, Greece. From the labyrinthine streets of the UNESCO-listed medieval city to the cliff-edge drama of the Lindos Acropolis. Thank you for watching, and wherever you go, safe travels.